I mentioned something about, or you mentioned it this morning about life is long. And as I was thinking about, as we were doing this talk, how what I thought was a long-term decision when I was, 18 years old or even 20, I thought long-term was 5 to 10 years. But now that I turned 52 on the weekend, I realized that the long-term is actually long-term. And and it's so hard for people to understand that. But so I wanted to throw a couple examples out of, because parents have to understand this to help their kids. So I'm going to get away from hockey for a second and say, what I used a couple. Diets. Okay, so most adults have done some form of diet. And some of the popular diets out there, well, they usually have a name. So there's keto, and there's, what's another one?
Keto, paleo, carnivore, Atkins, low carb generally.
Low carb, yeah,
whatever.
Generally low carbs. Or one that got very popular is when you make shakes.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen a lot of people.
Juicing.
And juicing. Okay. And whatever. I get that. Yeah. Okay. So I get that people want. So what happens is, like, especially the ones on the shakes, I've seen a lot of people go on them, and you could tell, not because it's not a bad thing, but there's a or a hardcore keto diet, which basically means you're eating lots of fat, some protein, and basically no carbs.
Yeah, basically none.
Yeah. So what happens is there's a dramatic weight loss early, and which is good, fantastic. But I don't think people really understand what actually happens. So if you're drinking shakes and stuff like that, let's say the shake diet, some of the shakes that people have, I forget the names, or I know the names, I don't want to say it, I don't care. Yeah. So what happens if you start just drinking shakes and there are some quality, let's just say there's some quality nutrients in it. Okay, great. But what happens is when you drink shakes, you're drinking your shakes. So if there's different ways you digest food, right? Proteins take longer to digest, so it keeps you fuller longer. Fats take longer to digest, which take longer. Carbohydrates that go through you will digest quicker. If you eat your food, you'll digest slower. If you drink your food, it digests faster. So what happens is all of a sudden you're drinking some calories. Like we talked about it with protein shakes the other day. It's going through so fast. I'd rather spend it on something that keeps me fuller longer.
There's no volume.
There's no volume. Yeah, exactly. You're not satisfied.
Yeah.
So anyways, my point is, you get some short-term results and you feel good. Yeah. But what if you asked yourself before you went on that diet, okay, I want to lose weight. Okay, no. Why? That sounds good. I look. That looks good. I've seen people getting results. Okay, cool. That sounds good. So why do I want to do this again? So you're going to say, because I want to drop some weight. Okay, so what are the repercussions of doing this? Is there any long-term effects? Is there anything that could go sideways on this thing? Is it actually something that I can sustain for a long period of time? And you ask 4 or 5 questions about yourself, or is there a better way? Am I looking at an easy way to do this? Or am I looking long-term and trying to get long-term results? Yep. And everybody knows that weight loss, muscle gain, fitness, and all that stuff is a process. It's daily disciplines over a long period of time. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, you might have lost 20 pounds in the first month or two. Wow. And that's good. Hope you're good. But the minute that you have a freaking bowl of oatmeal, that's going straight to your hips or your ass. Mm-hmm. And then your gut, and then your chin. And then all of a sudden, you're back. And now, so think about now the next phase is physically you felt better for a while, but now mentally you're back further. Never mind the physical part. You're going to be putting that weight back on, and it's going to be tougher because now your metabolism is actually digesting stuff and maybe not the proper stuff, whatever. But then you're going to get hungry and you're going to want to eat more because you're satisfied. Oh, that I missed eating this. This is going to be good. But mentally, what is it doing to you? Right. You just told yourself that like it comes out somehow that this is hard. I can't do it. And you put yourself in a mental rut, which is you're behind the 8 ball even further than you were 2 months ago, or 6 months ago, or whatever it is. And it doesn't happen once in a while; happens all the time.
Oh yeah, man! I could just go on a tear talking about.
Can I go one more, and then you go on a tear?
Yeah.
So, but I want to get back to hockey. On this stuff because,
I'm gonna.
So I had an opportunity. Okay, so obviously men's testosterone drops every decade. There's a certain percentage of your testosterone that drops. I don't think mine has, but it had to because I'm getting a receiver. But I got to have energy, but I move, I take care of myself, right? So it tops off the levels. But I was looking at a shortcut a while ago. I was reading about testosterone replacement and how testosterone replacement will top off your testosterone to keep you feeling young. And I was like, oh, that'd be kind of cool. And it might be. And I actually went to my doctor, who's a good friend of mine, and I talked to him about it. And I said, hey, listen, man, if I do this, I don't want to look like I'm on steroids and all this kind of stuff. And I don't ever want to cheat. So anyways, we talked about it, and he gave me blood tests to do, I think 2-3 years ago, and I still haven't gone. Because I thought about it, and I'm like, and maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's not, but I look at it as like, to me, it's a shortcut.
Yeah.
And then there was other things presented to me, and it was like, oh man, short term. And then we talked about this. Remember, there was a little bit of I was going through menopause. Is that what men have?
No,
I know. I'm just kidding.
Okay. Oh, thank God. Oh, thank God.
So I was going through like a little bit of. I had to figure myself out because I was going. I was hitting 50. And I felt like maybe I was just mentally exhausted. So there was something going on where my eating and my fitness, they weren't really working out, and I was like hanging on to a
you needed like a realignment. Yeah.
And you and I talked, and I was so thankful for this because you just basically said, hey, shut up. Your metabolism, blah, 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 blah. There's something that you're doing. You like your beers on the weekend? Well, there's one. And you started picking it apart. And I love the honesty, and I love that relationship that we have. But you kept me honest, and I went searching, and I said, okay, what is it? And then we did Operation Fluff Off and all that stuff, and it's like, oh yeah, I don't need that and that. I need this vessel right here. Figure it out. Ask some questions. Do the thing. You get the results. Period. Shut up. But anyways, I'm not saying that. Like maybe testosterone replacement to keep it up. To keep the testosterone up is a very, very good option for most people, and it might even be good for me.
Right.
But I'm doing pretty good for a 52-year-old man.
Well, okay, so I'm going to attack this backwards.
Your turn. So I'm going to go have a snooze.
So for the testosterone thing, it's if that's something that is actually necessary for you to do, then that's a good thing to do, right? But have you addressed all of the avenues? Is basically what I was getting at when we were talking about it, right? And if you haven't yet, well then now you're looking for a shortcut, right? If everything else is dialed in and it would still be healthy for you to do that because it'd be beneficial to your biology, then that's good. But if you're just farting around in all these other areas and then you just want to take this because you think it'll make it easier, then that's now a shortcut, right? And that's the difference between the two. So that's one thing. The diet thing, like I want to go like one step. Because when you talk about diets and people, they go on these short-term things because they want to lose some weight quick. And one of the issues that people run into is they don't learn while they're doing the diet. First of all, you're making an intentional choice with what you're eating, which is a good thing. So say
that again. You're making an intentional choice
with what you're eating, right? Which is a good thing. So if you're deciding to diet or to do some kind of intervention to make your eating habits better or to lose some weight or whatever, that's a good thing, right? That's a good step. Okay, but the second step of that is actually try to learn why the diet works or doesn't work, right? Like what is it that drives the diet? So if you're somebody who's doing this smoothie thing, right? So you're getting yourself a big wad of micronutrients in these smoothies, which is a good thing. But the reason you're losing weight is because you're in such a calorie deficit. That's why you're losing the weight, right? You're not eating.
Right.
That's why you're losing weight, right? And people don't ask those questions like you were saying, right? And then one step further than that, when you talk about playing the long game and the reason why eating well is important, you won't notice from the time you're out of the womb till 30. Like that's not when you're going to notice the differences, right? When you start to run into health problems, and everyone that runs into health problems, it happens around like 40, 50, 60, 70. This is when your habits of all those years before start to show up. So you feel like you can get away with eating the pizzas and drinking the beers and having like, the standard American diet type of way of eating. You think you can get away with that because you don't see the results. You're not seeing any impact yet, right? And that is like an ultimate example of playing the long game, right? You unfortunately don't get to see any of those results in the near term. But if you build the habits now, one of the best ways to fight off like getting diseases when you're older, having health issues, is by doing it in a preventative way. Rather than after you already have the problem, trying to fix the problem, right? So when you're, from the time you're young, old enough to make decisions about what you're eating until you're 30, 40, 50, if you have a good structure of habits, the likelihood of you running into issues is way less, right?
Yeah.
And that's why that is an ultimate example of a long game. Like we're talking a scale of 50, 60 years, right?
But when you are 60 years old and you're healthy and your friends can't get out of their chair, then you go, oh,
right,
that was smart.
And then even going back now to what you said the first time, how life is long.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about from the time once you hit 50, let's say you live 100 years, let's say, okay, most people not so far, but let's say you're around 100 years.
Yeah.
When you hit 50, you still have half your life left.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you have good habits up to the time you're 50, you'll get another good 30, 40, 50 years still, which is long. Like that's a long time.
That's a long time. Yeah.
And you want that to be quality. You don't want it to be, you don't want to have a hard time for the rest of your life, right? So you think about it that way. Like life is a long time. Like people say time goes by fast, and it does on the one hand, but on the other hand, it's like this is long periods of time.
Yeah. Goes by just like the book, it goes by fast and slow.
Right. Exactly. So when you're 50 years old, you still have a ton left. I was listening to a podcast today, and this guy was talking. He was a guy from Harvard, and he was 55. And one of the guys asked him a question about like, do you think about your own mortality? Like, do you ever think about death and these kinds of things, right? And the guy was saying, I do, but it like not like anything crazy, whatever. But the point of what he was saying is like, I still have like 30, 40 years left, right? So he's in his 50s. Like, you still have a long time, right? You still have a long time. Yeah. And one of the things that Dalton and I were talking about the fitness thing, and this is going to start to circle back into hockey, but now that he's not playing hockey anymore, it's like you need to find a new motivation for like why you're training, right? Like what's the point of what you're doing? Yeah. And Peter Attia is a guy that I like to listen to, and I showed Dalton him maybe a couple months ago. Yeah. And what he says about his training, and he's training for the Centenarian Olympics. And so Centenarian, for people that don't know what that means, is you're over 100 years old, right? So the game that he plays in his head is, if there was an Olympics for 100-year-olds, what would the events be? And he planned out like some events that you would have to do. So you need to be able to do a goblet squat to like a good range of motion. You need to be able to do a waiter carry over your head or a suitcase carry or doing stairs. Like these are things that you have to be able to do in the Centenarian Olympics, and you're training for that. Like you want to be able to, and all that's just kind of a little metaphor for having a quality life for the remainder of your days now, right? So a guy like Dalton, who's a specimen, changes motivation to be mobile, to be strong, and to be able to last, because life is a long time, right? And so, I'll toss back to you, then we can switch back into the hockey thing, because I could keep going on the hockey point.
Well, so that was like when I said that about the diet, and you could use the same thing for, people buy cars, right? But cars in big houses, and if they look at it, why do people do that? Like the short term, it looks good, feels better, but once you get that car and you drive it for a week, it's now just a car, and long term, it's costing you more money if you don't do it properly, right? Do you really need a car? Like it's like a short term thought that makes you happy in the short term, but does it help you? It doesn't help you. Like unless you're looking at you don't want to get repairs on your old car. Okay, yeah. But I watch people that just roll their vehicle because you can finance it, and it's a short game. It's easy, but when you're 60 years old and you still have a car payment and different things like that, then it bites you in the ass. I wish you would have exercised some discipline then.